How can one avoid the whisperings of shayṭān? Through the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reading those surahs of the Quran that have within them the isti'adha billah, that they have within them seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, and likewise Ayat al-Kursi, and likewise the last two ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah, and other than that. And that will protect you insha'Allah, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you. And likewise, do not be overtaken, do not make that the greatest thing in your life. Don't focus upon these things, treat it like an inconvenience rather than something that is overtaking your life. Because I think a lot of the problem, especially with sisters, is that when something like this happens, they sense that there's a whispering and causing them doubt in their wudu or in their tahara, or how many rak'ahs have I prayed, and you're in the middle of the prayer, did I wash my big toe? So you over exaggerate the effect of the whispering. You've made wudu, khalas, why are you worried about it in the third rak'ah of Maghrib? About whether the water reached between your big toe and then toe next to it. This is whisperings from shayṭān. Don't allow that to affect you. And really, and I've said this many, many times to brothers and sisters, do not allow it to become the center point of your life. Do not allow, because then shayṭān has overcome you and he is victorious over you. So how do you avoid it? By ignoring it. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions this quite often, or mentioned it a few times at least, that a person allows this whispering to be the most important thing in their life. So they forget their husband. So if it's a sister, she forgets her husband, looking after him, looking after the children, reading the book of Allah, doesn't, attend the duroos anymore, because everything is about this. Sometimes you hear stories, a sister goes to, or a brother even, but predominantly it afflicts women more than men. She'll go to bed and she thinks, did I turn off the kitchen light? So she comes downstairs and the light is off. And she goes back upstairs, did I turn off the downstairs bathroom light? Then she comes downstairs and checks, it's off. Then she goes to bed, shayṭān whispers to her, did you turn off the microwave? She comes downstairs, checks it's off. Then she goes upstairs. And this goes on till 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. What about the gas oven? Is it on low? Is it on high? Is it up? She goes back downstairs again. And then it enters into their ibadah, into issues of tahara, as I've mentioned. I made mash. I don't know if I went all the way to the back, to the nape of my neck or not. Maybe I stopped halfway. Let me go back and make wudu again. Over issues like this. Why? Because you've allowed it to become the most important thing in your life. And this is not the most important thing in your life. You were created to make ibadah of Allah. That's why Allah created you. So make it ibadah. And don't worry about, these issues and these doubts that are thrown at you. So these are whisperings of shayṭān, but we allow them to enter into our lives. It is our fault. Or should I say your fault. And you shouldn't allow them. This is shayṭān. And he's trying to gain mastery over you. So don't give him mastery over your mind and over your heart, such that he decides where you go. And he decides when you pray. And he decides how many times you make wudu. He decides how many rak'ahs you do. And I've heard of stories from brothers and sisters that for dhuhr alone they've prayed about 15 rak'ahs. 15 rak'ahs. Why? Because they prayed, I didn't make wudu. I'm going to make wudu, repeat the prayer. Come back in the middle of the prayer, I've forgotten how many rak'ahs I prayed. So I'm going to add. So they add. Then they add more. And by the time they finish the prayer, they're weeping. Not weeping out of khushu', but weeping out of frustration. That all has been lost. And even after they've prayed the 15 rak'ahs or 16 rak'ahs, they still don't consider their prayer to be correct. So who's deciding for you now? Shayṭān. Shayṭān decides how many rak'ahs you're praying. Shayṭān decides, how many times you're going to make wudu. Shayṭān decides the maximum amount of times that you're allowed to wash any limb in wudu is how many? 3. So why are you washing it 14 times or 22 times? Why do you keep visiting the bathroom to make istinja over and over and over and over again? So who's deciding for you? You think that this is a command from Allah for you. This is not Allah's command. This is shaytan commanding you. Shaytan decides how many times you're making istinja. Shaytan is deciding how many times you're washing your hand or your limb or your face or rinsing your nose and rinsing your mouth. Sniffing into your nose and rinsing your mouth. Shaytan is deciding all of this. So now Shaytan decides how many times you're going to make ibadah. How many rak'ahs you're going to make. How many times a day you're going to pray or not pray. Shaytan decides in the middle of the night whether you're going to get out of bed and go and check the lighting all around the house again. Shaytan is deciding for you. So this is not obedience to Allah. This is obedience to shaytan. And Allah has commanded you to obey Him, not to obey the shaytan. Once you've finished the wudu is finished. Khalas, pray, done. Don't look back, don't return back. If, when, did I, how, Forget the ums and ahs. Come and pray the salah. When you finish the salah and you've made taslim, leave it. Make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the tasbihat. The tasbih and the tahmeed and the takbir and the tahleel. Make the dhikr of Allah and get on with your life. Go and pick up the kids. Go and take them to Quran school. Go and prepare dinner for your husband and your children. You go to the mosque if you're a man. Go and sit in the masjid. Go and sit in the dars. Get rid of these whisperings from your life by not giving them. Shaitan is that important to you that you're going to obey him and you're going to follow him in everything that he whispers to you with? Because that is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance. That is not tawfiq from Allah. Allah wants for you ease. Allah wishes for you ease. Allah does not wish for you hardship. So when this hardship comes, you know it's not from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you ibadah. Something that is easy and straightforward. I get up. I make wudu. I cover my body. I face the qibla. I know what I'm about to pray. And I pray. 4 rak'ahs for dhuhr. In the middle of those 4 rak'ahs, I sit down in tashahhud. At the end of the 4 rak'ahs, I make taslim. Salah done. Now let me get back to the affairs of the dunya, in which I am not disobeying Allah. So I prepare my husband's meals. I iron my children's clothes. I read some Quran. I make dhikr of Allah. I fill my days in ibadah. Shaitan is not ruling my life. He's not the center of my world. Be careful, brothers and sisters. Be careful with regard to these affairs. Jazakumullahu khairan. Let's finish upon that note. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our communities and protect our brothers and sisters from these types of whisperings. Jazakumullahu khairan. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi